Welcome to Posh Conversations on Metis Posh Radio. I'm Jaya, and today I have with me Rajesh, Anita, and Komal. So, Rajesh, can you tell me why IC is so critical for organization governance?
I can divide it into three components. One, of course, is risk management. Right, many times when sexual harassment cases are not handled properly within the organization, there's a huge legal risk for the organization. When there's a legal risk, there's cost involved. There's a brand implication, and of course, there's a lot of time consuming a lot of time of key people in the organization. The second component is cost itself. So, for example, you have a key employee who's working in your organization, a high performer. For no mistake of this person, okay, one fine day is sexually harassed. There's no mechanism to actually deal with it. So this person leaves. So when this person leaves, there is cost of recruiting. There's business continuity problems. So there's so much of cost involved in getting a new person in, right? So and training this person to get to where this the earlier person was. Now this has all happened because there's no proper infrastructure, or I would say they don't even have an internal committee to handle this, some kind of a governance to handle this, right? So it's extremely important, if you ask me. One more, the third component is ethical oversight mechanism, right? So how ethical can you be as an organization? This also affects the brand of the company. So what the IC does, okay? The IC is like a custodian of ethics within the organization. So, in case there is a case, a person can approach the IC. The IC will do due diligence. They'll follow principles of natural justice. They will do a proper inquiry, and also be very fair to both the parties that are concerned, right? And bring it to a logical end. So this way, there is less legal implications for the organization if the IC is handling it. I'll give you an example. Okay, so there was this company where there was a case filed against the senior manager. So the first reaction of the organization was, let's handle this. I mean, let's not get this sexual harassment. So they tried to handle it themselves. Now, when a person handles it, when the company handles it themselves, what happens? A lot of lapses. They don't check they don't do a thorough investigation, etc. And they pass some kind of a judgment. They call these two people and try and handle it and pass a judgment. Now, this can go very wrong, right? This can go legal. It can go legal. It can, the brand of the organization gets affected. A lot of implications for the organization. Whereas if there was an IC, right, the IC would have probably, taken this complaint formally. They have powers of the civil court, so they can conduct a proper investigation. Even though it's the manager of the organization, they can do proper justice. They can ensure fairness. So I would say it's a very big ethical governance tool for organizations, apart from cost implications, etc. So very importantly is the IC protects not just the individual, it protects institutional integrity as well. So this is my point of view as far as organization governance and the IC is concerned.
Okay. Anita and Komal, have you had instances where, because of no visibility on the IC, the cases have been handled by just the individuals like managers or HR or their friends, etc., and they've got into trouble? Any experiences that you've had where?
Yeah, we have had situations where they have taken the managers have taken the things into their own hands. They have said sometimes even said don't go to the IC even if there was an IC saying that we'll sort it out. But then there are a lot of issues that come actually with that as well because one, they're not equipped to handle it. They don't understand the concept of confidentiality, so they go around talking about the case. So it actually creates a lot of confusion. So yeah, there have been instances.
Okay. Komal, any instance?
Yeah, many instances, in fact. There have been instances where we have come to finally when the person has perhaps attended an awareness session and realized that they could actually get justice. They've come to the internal committee, and then we figured that this has been not going on for a few months, but years. That a person has quietly been sitting and, just bearing whatever was happening because they didn't know that there was an option that they had. We've had instances where other colleagues have given misinformation, right? That because they also don't know. They have just said, this kind of stuff happens. This is common. Just ignore, apply for a transfer. We've had even instances where other colleagues have said, better for you if you just leave this job. There's no hope for anything else because nobody ever does anything. This is not that they don't know sometimes that the IC is there. Sometimes it's just that they know the IC is there, but there's no faith in, anything really happening from that end.
Mm. So that means, when you say IC visibility, it's not just one awareness session in a year, probably that could give information. So I think there has to be this constant effort by the organization to ensure their IC is visible everywhere. It could be in terms of posters, mailers, newsletters, displays, physical displays, and every probably leader talking about it in town halls, introducing the IC members publicly. I think all that is very important.
In fact, very interestingly, you talk about these posters, etc. Many organizations find it very embarrassing to put up these posters. They are not so willing to really, they have displays, they have video displays now. Just let one of the posters be that of the IC, the faces of the IC members, right? But no, they find it very embarrassing. They want to hide it on a notice board somewhere in the corner, etc. But I think that completely misses the point on why we need those posters or why the act has actually asked us to put those posters out there. It's so that anybody and everybody who has any sort of a query, question, fear, anything, right, should know who they can reach out to. And just knowing that there is an IC doesn't mean we understand what that means.
Yeah, no, and I think also, not just for the employees, but even for a visitor. Like we had an instance, right, when this person came for an interview and felt extremely uncomfortable during the course of the interview. And when she walked out, the very fact that she saw the IC members' names displayed, then she realized and she wanted, she said, I want to make a complaint. And then she went ahead and made a complaint, right? So even for visitors, outsiders who walk into your space, even for them, a visibility of the IC members helps them if they need, any kind of help.
Correct. So when we talk about visibility, I think mostly we concentrate only on our employees. We seldom, realize that it's also for anyone who needs. It could be a outsider visitor as well. Okay, rightly said. So, in one of the companies, they had everywhere they had IC displays. Apparently, none of the IC members in that poster or the list were still in the organization. And so there was this instance where a lady has reached out. She didn't want to obviously reach out to one of her HRs because she felt that the HR knew the respondent. She's tried calling up the number, in the poster, and that person said that she's no longer in the IC and she's no longer in the company for that matter. Then she said, "Who is it?" And that lady on the phone said, "No, I don't know who is the next IC member. You may have to check with your HR." She obviously couldn't go back to the HR. She couldn't talk to her manager. Then immediately she tried calling the other number, other email ID. So the moment she sent the email ID, it bounced. And she was so furious. When she went and spoke to the management, already half the damage was done. So I see visibility when you say it has to be updated, all that also has to be a part. So Anita, do you have an experience where while doing an awareness session, you've asked people, who is your presiding officer, and none of them knew about it?
Yeah,
Has that
it actually happened. So I did ask, and she was sitting right there in the session, and she was shocked because,
So she didn't know.
no, she was shocked that people didn't know. Nobody, and there were like at least 50, 60 people there. I was doing it in different groups, and no one, said her name. And she got up, really shocked and kind of introduced herself. So yeah, it's happened. Some of them may know one person, don't know the rest. Some of them may not know them at all. It has happened. Yeah.
Komal, you've had any experience?
Well, every awareness session, I actually ask them, do you know at least one person from the IC panel? Do you know at least one person? And if you don't, at least you know me now, right? So it is very, very important to know a person, right? Otherwise, sometimes we can be in different buildings, different cities, and IC members are not there as a part of our, we don't see them on a day-to-day basis, and hence we are not familiar with them. So when we do have something that we want to report or talk about, something which we all know is always embarrassing, right? Then we don't want to go to a completely perfect strange person and, start sharing our deep, dark secret or embarrassing story, right? So it always does help to know, your IC members. Even if you don't actually have a rapport with them, just being introduced to them, just seeing them during awareness sessions, it makes a big difference. Because once I've seen the person, I automatically feel a little bit more comfortable talking to them or just reaching out to.
True. And most importantly, why do you all think that employees must trust the IC?
Ah, it's a very important question, right? So, I mean, trusting the IC, so just because there is an IC doesn't mean that we will trust it, right? The IC needs to be seen as a body that is known for fairness, and of course, this trust needs to be built over time, etc. Right? And how do you do this? Because, well, all our proceedings are confidential, which means nobody actually knows what we do behind closed doors, right? So the trust is built through everything that we as IC members do. So when we get a complaint, the constitution of the IC, and not just when we get the complaint, but in general, the constitution of the IC, right? Making sure we have an external member on board. So many organizations, when we get, when I joined them first, when I ask them, so who was your previous IC? They'll have no external member. They'll have the managing director, right? So
Managing director is
as a, no, as
as
the
a IC member.
IC member,
Okay.
right? So now all of these things matter, right? When I, as an employee, if I've been in any other organization, I know that you're supposed to have an external member, etc. Even if I don't know that your managing director cannot be on the IC, right? So it makes me then feel a certain way about you as an organization and your thinking when you actually created this IC, right? So it's very important that when organizations are constituting these ICs, they make sure that they're doing everything as per the mandates of the act, right? When we get complaints, making sure that whoever is on that complaint from the IC, is all. It's okay to have them, right? There should be no reporting between the complainant, respondent, or any of the IC members. If there is any bias, we should be mature enough to be able to sort of see it and remove it from the IC. I had this case, we started the investigation, the first day, first show. The presiding officer actually said, I know this guy, the respondent. He's been there forever. He's a little crude. He's a little rough around the edges, but I mean, he just comes across like that, but it doesn't mean any harm, right? And then about the complainant, she's only been here a month. Already, she's filed a complaint. Then later on, in interviews, etc., comments like she's just a third party vendor. This respondent is our own employee. We have to look after our own, right? So now these kind of comments, these kind of thinking in an IC, it's very, very dangerous, right? It conflicts. We'll talk about principles of natural justice, of course. So this definitely conflicts with that, right? So obviously, the point is not that we need to be perfect and there can be no mistakes. But when things like this come up, we should immediately remedy them, right? So in this particular case, we reconstituted the IC. We got a new presiding officer, basically, and removed the one individual who, had made certain comments that showed clear bias, right? So when it comes down to trust, the structural integrity of the internal committee is very, very important in creating a basis for that trust, right? And then we're talking about principles of natural justice itself, right? So procedural integrity, making sure that no matter what the complaint is that we get, we are following the mandates of the act, no matter who the complainant is, no matter who the respondent is, no matter how serious the complaint is or how small the complaint is. All of these things should not actually play any role when it comes to our investigation processes. And we should make sure that we are sticking to that, right? Because those things in the end really highlight how trustworthy your internal committee is, right? Where you can depend and rely on them, making sure documentation of evidence, of statements, everything, even when we have unique situations and circumstances during our investigation process, making sure we record that, we document that. So whatever the IC is doing, it's evident to everybody who is involved that the IC is doing it with complete procedural integrity and fairness, right? And making sure that neither party is feeling retaliated against or is feeling that the IC is biased in any form or manner, right? And lastly, of course, behavioral credibility. And this I only bring up because I had this awareness session. Really went really well, had a great session. At the end of the session, I always say, you have any questions? The kind of questions that I got in that particular session is who elects the internal committee?
No, I've also had that.
Right?
cases, yeah.
What is the tenure of the IC? Can I ask for an IC member to be changed? Why are there no elections to choose the IC members? Very, very telling questions. Oh, yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, the respondent, yes. What if I have a complaint against the IC member? Now, I mean, getting a one-off question like that is heard of, but all the questions were like of this nature. And
In the same session,
in
you
the
got-
same session, right? Only this kind of question tells you something about what the organization, the employees of the organization are thinking about when it comes to their IC, right? And at the end of the session, when the entire room was empty, two girls came to me and said, they named two IC members and said, these two individuals, they make fun, crack inappropriate jokes, taunt and tease us. When we go and try to complain to them, laugh at us about things, right? In general, not just posh related. And then they named one IC member and said that it's his team that is the most brash and has the most inappropriate behavior in the workplace. Now, tell me, how are we supposed to go and complain, right? So, behavior of an IC is so important. How we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis is exactly how much your employees, your organization is going to trust in you and in the organization in the end, right? So, it's very, very important that we make sure that our behavior, even during investigations themselves, right, being absolutely fair, making sure our tone is respectful, and we are giving them, equal opportunities, all of that, without either party feeling that the IC has not done due diligence to the best of their ability, right? So, yeah, so in the end, of course, trust is not a demand. It is something that the IC needs to demonstrate and the organization needs to feel it.
And also, right, when we meet people from management, when they ask us about who should be the IC members, I think most importantly, what we also tell them is choose people whom your employees can trust. It's not necessary that they have to be most experienced, but these are people who should who are people who have made decisions in a fair manner, whom people can trust, whom people can look up to, come and talk, air their grievances. Only such people should be in the IC. And I think very important from an awareness perspective, all this information should be made available to them. How you choose your IC as an organization, who can become an IC member, what are the powers of an IC, what happens when you give your complaint to the IC, everything, every doubt that they have regarding their internal committee members should be clarified during the awareness sessions. And I see there's a little bit of lagging. I think people should take
And
care.
I think, like Komal said, in terms of behavior, I think their responsibility is not just when a complaint comes, right? Because people form these first impressions of them even before they've engaged with the process. So, as an employee, how they conduct themselves, whether it's with integrity, whether they're being fair, they're being honest, respectfully, talking to employees. So they're watching them. And I think if they perceive that these people are conducting themselves in a very respectful, manner, then automatically there's a sense of trust, and then they can actually approach, they feel comfortable approaching them and believe that, okay, if we approach them, that they will conduct the investigation in a fair, just manner, So, yeah, it starts way before.
Yeah, and I've had presiding officers who are so good at their job, who are so approachable that I've had complainants who said that the presiding officer was going to travel. So the complainant said, "I'll wait for her to come back because I have faith in her and I want her to be on my internal committee when the investigation happens." So it definitely shows. It gives a lot of comfort if I'm able to rely and trust in my.
I had an experience in a case. I was apprehensive if the woman will be comfortable talking about a physical inappropriate touch, because usually we give them a choice saying that, hey, we have men as well in the IC, and if you're not comfortable, we can ask them to just step out till you complete. And we've had, complainants saying that, no, I trust him. I know him very well, and I'm comfortable talking about it. An inappropriate physical touch, which people are not even comfortable telling women, there have been instances where they're very comfortable and they've told also, I trust and I know that this person is not going to say. So I think building the trust is one of the key aspects that an organization should really worry about. Okay. Next, we'll be talking about confidentiality. So, confidentiality is one of the most misunderstood aspects of the IC process, right? So, first, I'll talk about what confidentiality, by confidentiality, what I mean, and then we can discuss what we feel about it. So, when I say confidentiality, I'm talking about the names and identities of all the parties. That means complainant's name, respondent's name, the witnesses' names, anyone that we meet as a part of the IC process. So, keeping those details confidential, keeping the details of the inquiry proceedings confidential, keeping the decision of the IC confidential. So basically, IC is a storehouse of all this information, right? So, how important it is for us to take care of this confidential information. And it's IC is also mandated by law to keep things confidential, etc. Now, what do you think? This confidentiality is a myth, or do you think that it's really taken care?
It's not. I mean, it is a myth in a way. Like it's both, right? There are different circumstances and different situations which make you feel here it worked and here it just was a terrible fail, right? Terrible fail is right up front when people don't know the right mechanism, don't know the right route to follow, and then comes a barrage of emails which is CC'd to 100 different people for no reason, right? And so we feel first that if I have a complaint, then I must tell my manager. Then my manager feels that I've received a complaint, I must tell my manager. Then if I go to my HR feels I must tell my manager. And then my HR, so how it goes. And then also at times we feel that even as an IC member, when we get information, sometimes we end up feeling like, let me ask a few more questions. And then we start probing, etc. And that's really where everything starts going wrong, right? Where we start talking to way too many people. And even before the message comes to the IC, it's possibly half the organization knows. I had a very not funny incident where we got a complaint and the IC members met, and one of the IC member walks in and he says, I know the complaint already before you guys know. And he was, of course, joking about it, but it was such a worrying thing that only the presiding officer had received the complaint, but he came in and he's like, I already know. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And it was funny, but it was not funny actually, because it was already out and everybody knew about it. That
Yeah, no, in a recent case that I've had, as in even before the IC members got to know, the entire organization got to know. Right? Yeah. And people started, and the sad thing was that people started doing the independent investigations, right? Started asking previous organizations about the person, and yeah, I mean, not the IC members. These are just managers in the organization, right? Deciding to take things into their own hands to find out about this person from previous organization. So, it's a small industry. So, you're spreading the wrong information because you don't even know if this complaint is actually true, right? Because the lady has no proof per se. It happened in a place where there was no CCTV. So, you can't immediately, and then also start reacting to the respondent in a very bad way, already assuming that he's the one at fault. So
Is it because there was no IC visibility there, or is it because there was no awareness?
I think there was not much awareness. Apparently, they did have IC put up on all the on the floors, but I don't really know about that. But clearly there was no awareness about that they can actually approach the IC, because it seemed like they were taking things in their own hands and doing things on their own. So even before the IC got to know, till the point it was so bad, because confidentiality also protects the both parties. So to the point that the respondent actually said, I can't work here anymore because people are walking up to me and saying, I heard you've done this before. Because people have been, like I said, investigating on their own, then going and talking to other people and sharing it. So for the respondent, it became, really difficult. So
That makes it even more important that, people reach out to only IC and nobody else, right? Yeah, Rajesh?
Yeah. So, see, organizations actually look at data breach very, very seriously, right? Like when you're signing up a vendor agreement, for us especially, there are so many documents that we sign on confidentiality, data breach, etc. So I think similarly, it has the same effect for an IC as well. So they also have to protect data. Any data which is out in the public can lead to a lot of problems, not only for the respondent, the complainant, for the organization as well, right? So what I suggest to the IC is that when you get a case, okay, you map the whole ecosystem. You see, right from sending an email, how do you send a confidential email, to how do you protect the documents that you're creating along the way, and who all are involved with the case, the entire ecosystem, making that a confidential space is a skill for the IC, I would say. It's a competency they need to build. And we've been talking to a lot of ICs and they're doing it, right? So they know the seriousness of breaking of confidentiality. So I think that's what every IC should do, is map it and take it very, very seriously.
Absolutely. So confidentiality basically takes care of all the workplace gossip. I mean, when you say IC is taking care of the confidentiality, it prevents any kind of workplace gossip. It ensures there's no reputational harm, and it also ensures your external leak. So I think it's very important. This is a very important piece that an IC should. And so all of this should be made available, visible to employees, saying that, so, when INBA, the national survey was done on POSH, couple of findings of that INBA survey was that 50% of women actually do not want to come to the IC, or do not come to who have faced sexual harassment, do not report to the IC, right? And one of the reasons was the confidentiality, saying that what's going to happen to my embarrassing story? Is it going to leak out? So your internal committee visibility is very important. Everyone should know who the internal committee members are, and everyone should know that they are the storehouse of confidential information. They will take care of the entire process in a confidential manner, and they are the people whom they should trust, right? So that is very important.
So I think in awareness sessions now, I keep telling them, that, because I think it's important to tell every employee that, if there is a case, please do not go and start talking about it to 100 people before coming to the IC, because then there's been a breach. So please come directly to us, and then we can keep it confidential and help you in that way.
Yeah. In one of my cases, manager has done the complete investigation because he didn't know IC was functioning. And, he has made a report of his own, and he has come and shared it with us, saying that, hey, I have done all the job. Now you can just take the disciplinary procedure. And we were like, on what basis did you do? No, I did the investigation. I went and asked everybody. Who everybody? From 3 different teams. He's spoken to 7, 8 different people. So imagine the amount of breach of confidentiality that has happened, and the entire organization knows about it. So these are things that employees are extremely scared about. What is going to happen to my embarrassing story? Is it going to come out? Are people going to get to know about it? So I think it becomes even more important that management should take care that employees know that internal committee members take care of the confidentiality.
Absolutely. And confidentiality is a mandate to the IC, right? So the moment you become a part of the IC, you sign on to confidentiality.
I just wanted to add, another point is because a lot of times, I think it's very important to let management also know that, because a lot of times, sometimes I've had instances where the management have gone and asked an IC member, and and then the IC member being junior sometimes to that person feels obliged to say something, right? So I think it's very important to educate the management also about the fact that they should not interfere, they should not ask in between, not pressure, put any kind of pressure on the IC, and for the IC also to know that they have the right to say that we cannot share this information.
Yeah. I've had these instances where, when told, management understands.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
issue.
They don't know.
They don't know about
Yes, well,
it.
they just need to be educated about that as well.
So, Rajesh, I think a lot of times we have spoken about what more can we do to stop the retaliation that happens, right? So, do you want to share anything on the retaliation part and how internal committee actually protects people from further retaliation?
First and foremost, I think one of the key roles of the IC is to protect against retaliation. And retaliation is a very, what do you say? It's a very human thing, right? So, for example, if somebody says something to me, which I don't like, then I do everything possible to retaliate against this person. And retaliation comes in various forms, right? So, especially in sexual harassment cases, it could be subtle things like don't involve this person in a meeting, okay, which that person is called regularly. Do not communicate on certain projects. Do not go out with, don't invite this person to outings that you do usually with team members. So these are all various forms of retaliation. It can be subtle and it can be straightforward retaliation. So the IC has a mandate to protect against retaliation. Okay, so they can provide interim relief. We look at it very seriously when a case comes to see whether there's any form of retaliation that can occur, and based on that we have a plan for it. So we usually tell people, that this person is going to be difficult to continue working wherever this person is working. This person needs off, work from home, or change of place. So making sure that they don't come in contact with each other. And we also take a lot of steps where, in case there's a case against the manager, so the manager will have no decision-making authority on that person who's reported the complaint against him. So there are a lot of such things that we can do in terms of retaliation. And the IC makes it very, very clear that retaliation is a no, okay, and it is punishable. So we make it very, very clear to the respondent, to the complainant and people who are involved that no form of retaliation can occur. So giving a complaint is your right, I say, okay, but retaliation is a violation.
If I want to ask all of you, what is that one thing that you expect from your IC? Just one thing. What would it be?
I think, that they need to possibly be empathetic, but, without any bias. It's just not empathy, but without any kind of bias involved, So I think that would be one that I can say.
I think for me, the IC should be visible. I should be able to reach out to these people whenever I have an issue. Visible and trustworthy, I would say.
I would want my IC to be fair. Because it's again a little bit to do with the biases that anybody has, but if we don't have a fair and unbiased internal committee, we cannot expect principles of natural justice to be followed, and we can't expect our the organization to sort of trust the internal committee. Sorry, I'm just going back to trust, but that's I think a fair and unbiased internal committee would help employees of the organization trust them as well.
I think from my perspective, I would say someone who can really make tough decisions. That's also very important. They should be good decision makers. They should be able to come down to a, final conclusion, and they should have the courage to do it, to do the right thing. Whatever be the seniority or the position of, or, however powerful the person is, IC members should be able to remain neutral and take those tough decisions at the end of the day. I think that's very critical. Well, just a few minutes, let's talk about what are the different myths that that are there surrounding the internal committee according to you. I think the one thing that comes to my mind is that IC is always, they are inclined towards only protecting women. I think that's a very, big myth that people have. Anything that you all want to say on that?
Yeah, so I think, there are a lot of times, when we, have these sessions, they keep, men get up and say, that what about women? What about us? Like if something, if there's somebody misbehaves with us, what do we do? Why is it only about women? And also the feeling that the act supports only women. But the truth is that in a lot of times that when we have conducted inquiries, we have discovered that there have been that it's been a false complaint. Right. And then the action is taken against the woman. So it's not that the women, that you support the women blindly. Basically, we look at evidence and we go by what the evidence, tells us. So, yeah, I mean, that is a bit of a myth.
And I think another myth is IC members are management agents. They all think that way. But actually, they are in a very independent body. They have been given powers of the civil court, certain powers of the civil court. And they function extremely independently, and they have nothing to do with the management.
So yeah, they are constituted by the management, but they don't report to
Yes,
the management. That's what it is. Okay, well,
Another one would be, I guess, that that complaints actually ruin careers, right? So I don't know if I want to say it's a myth, because we spoke about confidentiality, right? And unfortunately, that remains something that happens far too often, because the awareness is always lacking. So yeah, we see a lot of careers actually getting spoiled because of that, right? So when we talk about reform, that reform only works for the respondent if the process has been absolutely confidential, etc. Otherwise, either or both parties can actually suffer from the consequences of an inquiry that happened into them, right? But on the other hand, also, it is a myth that all inquiries lead to termination, right? And that's like one of the biggest thing. A lot of people, when we say, this is sexual in nature, so should you want to file a complaint, they say, no, but I don't want to get this person terminated, right? There's an assumption that no matter what the complaint, no matter how big, small, whatever, the organization just wants to get rid of the individual and termination will follow. So, that is a myth. That's not how we follow due process. We listen to both sides and then take, based on the evidences, etc., the internal committee takes its decisions, right? So, yeah.
thank you everyone. This was Metis Posh Conversations on IC Visibility. So, internal committee is not just a compliance body, it's also a protector of dignity, a guardian of fairness, and a symbol of organizational integrity. See you all next time.